Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real conversations.
So for the Amazing Truth Minute today, we'll focus on Matthew chapter 25, verse 35 to 36. And it says, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. See, folks, the Bible reveals that God cares deeply for the poor and afflicted. As Christians, we are to concern ourselves with the same things God cares about. It's no secret that God has a heart for the poor, and He calls His children to tend to their sufferings. In the book of Matthew, Jesus was speaking about the final judgment when believers will be separated from non-believers. One evidence of saving faith that will differentiate the saved from the lost is a history of caring for those in need. Our good deeds don't save us, but they are evidence of a genuine faith. If we understand how desperately poor in spirit we are apart from Christ, the inevitable result is we will sympathize and have compassion for the poor of this world. The more we come to understand the gospel, the more our hearts will relate to the poor and marginalized, as we realize that apart from Christ, we would spiritually be in the same condition. So we ask that God will break our hearts over the things that break your heart. We pray that you teach us to love all those whom you love and to serve all those who you have called us to serve. That is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Thank you. Welcome back, Kenan.
Ezra,
how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Always.
I think we need to start being real. I've seen you before even this podcast.
Many times.
Good to see you. But I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. And I hope you are. I am looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Why are you looking forward to the conversation?
I'm looking forward to this conversation because the guest we have lined up is someone we've come to know.
Yep.
And we are excited to hear her story. Yep. And we're excited to not even just to hear her story, but for the people that will hear her story.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited. Why are you excited, Ezra?
I'm excited because we're seated with our friend.
Yes.
I'm excited. Just even if we sit and we don't talk, I'm excited just to be able to see our guest, our friend Edna. We've had the privilege to hear her amazing story, amazing journey, and I'm excited. I'm always celebrating life. I'm always celebrating life. I'm always celebrating when you hear someone's journey and you draw from lessons from them, because I'm already inspired, and I know our guests is ready to inspire us, is ready to speak to us, is ready to share her story. But listeners, viewers, wherever you are, we just want to, first of all, appreciate you. Sometimes we don't celebrate the people who join to listen and to do be part of us. We appreciate you, but we also want to thank you for the amazing messages that we receive. Amazing feedback, support.
Some have called it it's inspiring, it's moving. So we appreciate, and those we always call those the silent listeners.
Listeners,
we want to thank you as well for listening silently. But we really, it's free to support, but we appreciate your listening and following, and also giving us encouragement to do more of this.
All right. No, thank you so much. Let us just dive into our conversation for today. We cannot do that without introducing our guest. But today we are privileged to have our friend, our sister, who's joining us to share her journey, her story. And I will be doing this service if I introduce her. So I'll let her just to introduce herself, tell us your name, tell us why you are excited, because definitely I want to believe you're excited to be here with us. And one thing that if I missed everything at the end of the day, let's say I lose power, let's say the internet crashes, before somebody gets to hear the whole story, one thing that you would like us to take away.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for having me here, Ezra and Kenan. My name is Edna Kerubo, and one thing that I'd like you guys not to miss, those who are listening and also us here, one thing I'd like us to know and to keep in mind always is that God is faithful. Yes. And I've said it at the start so that you also don't miss it in case something happens.
We should just end the podcast, Kenan.
Yeah.
Because at the end of it, everything just comes back. Everything just comes back to that. We are excited. We are excited to have you, Edna. Somebody may be wondering, okay, so what are they going to talk about and and all that stuff. In a nutshell, we just want to talk about Edna's journey through schizophrenia, right? And how God has been faithful, how she has journeyed through that journey, and how she is still standing tall and using her story as a tool to empower, encourage someone. So let's dive deep. Let's just dive deep into it, Kenan.
Yeah, before we do that, I think it's paramount to say that this is never easy.
It's never easy.
It's never easy for someone to talk about sensitive things, personal things like that. So as we start, we ask that as you listen, keep praying. I know if you're listening, this has already been recorded, but keep praying as you listen, and pray for those that are going through the same or have gone through the same. Keep them in your thoughts. And again, Edna, we want to applaud you for being courageous to share and come sit with us, mere feeble men, to share your story. But we know someone will be enriched, someone will be saved, and someone will hear and seek the help they need. So,
all right,
let's go into it.
Kenan has to be the smooth talker into it as we ease into this conversation. I don't know how to do what you do, so I am just going to be me. Smile, laugh, talk, and enjoy. So, thank you. And of course, definitely. So, Edna, who's Edna? Where was Edna born? Tell us a little bit about Edna, where you're calling us from, or where we're doing this recording from, and a little bit about, let's get to know Edna a little bit. Who's Edna?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm in Nairobi, Kenya, and we're doing this podcast from. I'm here, you guys are there. And who is Edna? I'm a creative designer by profession, meaning I do like graphic design, and I'm also an author. I write mostly poetry and also prose sometimes. And where was I born? I was born in Nairobi. And
that's good enough.
That's good. So Kenan, she's a creative designer.
We're all creative designers. The problem is she has work to show. We don't.
As we have nothing to show, so we celebrate creative designers. Let me ask Edna, just as we ease into this conversation, what do creative designers do? Like, what does that mean for someone who's a young person? Well, it's one of the things we like doing in this podcast is also just give information that somebody might miss everything else, but they might be interested. What is a creative designer? What do you do? What does that mean? You go to college, do they teach you how to draw? What is that?
Okay, in simple terms, I design like logos, posters, brochures, advertising, and
in simple terms,
such kind of stuff.
In simple
terms.
All right, so creative designer. Growing up, is this what you always wanted to do? how did you end up in creative designer? How was the journey? Walk us through that journey as we get to know Edna. We just want to anchor ourselves. How did you end up in creative design, and what inspired you, and how do you see that, like, making you Edna?
Yeah, actually, I didn't really think I'd be a creative designer. My journey with regards to that began in maybe class 5. I realized I could actually draw so well. Therefore, I went to high school and I studied art and design. And then after high school, it just flowed that I went to a course that is related to design, which was a BA design. And that's how I found myself doing
I'm sure it's very
work.
peaceful when you're designing and you're doing your creative work. It's very enriching. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
I
nice.
think Kenan,
nice.
for those of us, at least for you and I, who have had Edna stories, and we know, we'll see how this creativity later on ties into her journey, to her story. And it's important how God actually makes things that even in your journey, He preps you, He gives you all these things that can, so people just wake up, I want to be a doctor, then you're working through your journey, it's tough, and your work is also stressing you. Like, how do you pick even a career that because life will always be ups and downs. Like, even that career can be a tool of coping, a tool of success, a tool that helps you. So you start this in grade 5, class 5. All right. So, Edna, do you have siblings?
Yeah.
If so, how many, and what, where do you fit in that scale and all that, A second born out of 5.
The second born out of 5.
Boys,
siblings.
girls, number.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second girl. The first one is a girl,
So
and
it's
then
2 girls,
3 boys
after
me.
you. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
And
Did you find yourself being the nurturing one, now that you're in the middle of them? You have to take care of them, and how, or the
You don't think?
I don't
So
think
what would you say? What would you say you found yourself being in that whole? We're 5 in our family. So how many of you get?
5 in
You're
our
5 in our family. You're middle child.
the last of the boys.
Yeah, last of the boys.
Yeah, and then one little girl.
So second to last.
Second to last.
So you're the one of the spoiled ones. Okay. All right. Edna is the second. I'm a firstborn. So we're all the
So
family.
that
of
question
5.
was supposed to be for you then.
No, for me, so as a second born, middle child, what would you say about middle child and just being that number? How it plays out into who Edna is?
I think I was kind of like lost, as in I'm not. I'm not there and I'm not there. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just
they say
there
the
by
second
myself.
ones are the forgotten
Yeah.
ones.
Really?
They're usually the forgotten ones. It's the firstborn. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
first
gotcha.
child, secondborn, and then the thirdborn comes. The firstborn is always there.
Yeah.
Secondborn is always forgotten. Then all focus goes to the third, the fourth, and the fifth. So I can tell I'm not a secondborn, but I've heard that a lot. That the secondborns are forgotten ones. They just float somewhere. And I don't know how that plays in your journey as well. So we'll also try to deduce that as well.
Interesting. So firstborns, I think firstborns we end up being parents by age. We end up parenting a lot, right?
By force, yeah.
By default. Then the second ones, you're kind of, as you said last. Don't quote me, listeners. According to the dictionary of Kenan,
This is my theory, please. Don't take it to the bank.
So secondborns tend to be I think middle children for the most part. There's that part, and then the last one. By the time they come, parents are I've seen it all. I've seen it all, and those are. So it's very interesting that how we grow, how even the order of children. I mean, you can even see this. I don't want to start preaching here, so you can see it all over the place. So we see that. So Edna is a second born in a family of 5, creative designer. Discovered the talent, the gift of design, and in 5th grade. Let me confess now, Edna. My worst class in school was art. Like KCP, I had that 45 out of 100. I can it's drawing and me, we don't get along. So I'm glad that you can compensate where my flaws are. But, so creative designer and all that. So did you go to boarding school or day school for any form of your academics? How's that childhood or academic journey for you?
Okay, in primary, I was not in a boarding school. I was in a day school that was just nearby. And yeah, it went well, actually. And I went on to high school. High school, I went to a boarding school in Limoru here. And that was a bit different because now we are staying in school. And
how was that? How did you enjoy that experience?
It's just a totally different
How was it?
altogether.
Just walk us through that glimpse of somebody who's never been to a boarding school.
Okay, at first you have to adjust because you're used to being at home. Then all of a sudden now you're in school and you're not with your parents, you're not with your siblings. Therefore you have to just adjust. Eventually I adjusted and it was quite a good experience, I'd say.
Folks that are outside of Kenya and Africa in general, when they hear boarding school, they attribute it to boot camp or this juvenile. So boarding school in those sides where we come from is, high school, we go to a boarding school. It's you get there for 3 months, you study in school. It's no punishment. It's not punitive at all. That's how the school system is there. And for the people that are listening from Africa, boarding school here is equated to, your juvenile or punitive or something of that sort. But there are boarding schools here, so just to put that in context. So you go to high school, and then how's the high school life in terms of your journey now? As we kind of just pick into it, how is high school in terms of your journey and what we are in context of what you're speaking to?
Yep. So for listeners, those who are joining us, our discussion today is journey through schizophrenia, the journey of Edna through schizophrenia, and so how in high school does that is it a normal life? Do you get stressed? Do you get frustrated? How is that journey? Like now you've left your parents. How's that?
Okay, it was normal for the most part, but there were a few stressful things maybe that were happening, and I just maybe didn't cope so well, but I just decided to focus on school because, you need to get good grades, and that's what your parents really want. Therefore, you just try to figure out life. Even if there are challenges, you just do your best and you push through.
So in high school,
that's what
your head is in results. I gotta do well. I gotta focus. Ups and downs, the goal is clear. I need to get the results. All right. So you finish high school, obviously, college, right? By the way, at this point, what are your hobbies, by the way, before we jump into college? What are your hobbies? Of course, design. Is there anything else you used to do besides designing for your hobbies, or you've always enjoyed? Yeah, in high school, going to college. What
in
are
high
your
school
hobbies, stuff?
Maybe art, design. Also writing. I used to write still back then.
And what was writing for you then? Was it a mode of coping with kind of the struggles that you were going through in high school? Was it a mode of coping, to speak? Okay, tell it.
Yeah, I used to keep a journal. I've kept journals for so long. I just used to find myself writing. Today was like this. I didn't like this. I hated this. And then I go back. Sometimes I go to the old journals and then I read them like, what? What was this? Yeah.
You have a journal.
You know the answer to that question. To our defense, we don't write. We speak. We let it out. So she lets it out too in her writing
is.
But for us, we talk.
We did us.
Yeah, our journalism.
Right. And then 2 days later, what did you say? You don't even remember.
Right.
You know, and I think that goes to show how people cope with things differently, how our personalities play into who we are as a person, as a people, right? You know, not everyone can write, not everyone can freely express and talk like you and I.
Right.
So just the fact that even from a young age, this becomes part of who you are, it's just an amazing thing in itself. Like, it's just, you're naturally writing. It's something you enjoy doing. You know, it's very amazing. To a point, you're a publisher. By the way, shout out, guys. Edna has written poems and she has published books, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. You better get when she told me I had to get one, I had to buy it, and I've been reading those poems, man.
I'm working on getting one too.
You're working on it. You better get one by the end of this.
I told you I wanted to listen to her story
first,
and then so I can put context to it. And I think it speaks to coping skills. You know, we joke about it, but that's, we might hate to admit it, but that's how we cope. Speak. She coped by writing. Some people cope by writing music or going to taking a walk, taking a bike ride. So find something that is a coping skill for you, and you know, just to help you, because life is tough. Life is hard. So find something that can help you cope. Right. So you graduate high school. What that period between before you go to campus, how was it? After high school.
It was also okay, a bit stressful, but I was also trying to keep busy. I remember I started doing some art lessons, like painting, oil paintings and painting, drawing.
Good.
That kept me busy.
Yeah.
Till now I joined campus.
Computer classes.
It's very interesting. One of the things you were doing, as we were getting in trouble with her parents, because we will not sit still in the house. We're always out there. So oil painting. I just have respect for anybody who says anything to do painting, art and stuff. It just, we will talk about the brain one of these days and how it's wired and the artistic side of that. So you go to campus, you're studying design in campus, I'm assuming, right? So another transition. So how are you handling transitions? You transition from a day school to a boarding school in high school, you know, a little bit hard, but you finally adjust. How is your transition to campus, and what do you study there?
Okay, the transition, it was peaceful.
Okay.
And I studied
the transition is
design. Yeah.
So you transition to campus, you have your freedom, is no longer boarding, you know, you get to go in and come when you want and stuff like that. So how how do you navigate now? Just start walking us through that journey now. How you start getting to, I know it's in campus where major stuff start happening. Walk us through that journey. What happens in campuses you're studying and all that stuff?
Okay, I had mentioned that high school was a bit stressful, and also the transition, it was a bit stressful, transition now from high school to campus. And though I haven't mentioned what that was, but I think all that stressful stuff or stressful events that was going through is what kind of led to what happened now after second year of campus. And I think it was coming slowly. Like, I started withdrawing from people. I started not going to church, for example, isolating myself and losing touch with reality. Those are some of the things that happened. Then eventually, after second year, when I went for the long holidays, now before joining third year, in the middle of that holiday, there's a time I was taken to hospital, and I stayed in hospital for some time. And later now I was told that I have a mental illness.
This is at what age? Well, not age,
after
but
I was discharged.
Third year, so maybe
sophomore here in college, going to he 16, sophomore 17, right? No, college.
College is what?
18 is high school. Okay, early 20s. Art and the math. They've left you. Let's do them. Let's help you. So these early 20s, right? Early 20s. So this is between the ages of 21, 23 in there.
Yes.
Early there. So early 20s.
I want to. So when you say it's stress, okay, then this is in high school. So did you?
Yeah.
You call it stress, and I think now you can still call it stress. But back then, did you realize, or did it occur to you maybe that it was something different? Maybe I cannot. The way you're coping with the stress. What did you call it then? I mean, what did you see it as then in high school? Or before you get diagnosed.
Okay, I was just like, something is not right, but I don't know. I'm trying to get a solution. I'm trying to figure it out, but I didn't know if it was stressing me or I didn't know if now.
Did you ever share with anyone? Did you ever talk to anyone saying, "Hey, I'm feeling just not like myself," like at high school or even early stages of college? Okay.
No, I didn't share with anyone.
You've generally said you're a shy person.
Yeah.
You're not too. Yeah. So that that explains.
Yeah. So your personality, who you are, generally, unlike the two of us, will be screaming at the top of the world, our lungs, right? So, so you go through this phase in high school. You are actually feeling distressed. You find your ways to cope with it, but finally in campus it caves in. It just seems to have overpowered and overtaken you, right? So what are some of the things that really actually made you now? Yes, you mentioned started with the drawing from church. So some of the things that you mentioned started with the drawing. What else? From people. What are some other things that you mentioned?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was also sad, like, for a lot of the time. I was thinking a lot, and think basically.
Do people around you realize? Yeah. And if they do, what is the conversation happening?
I think they realize now when I lost touch with reality.
When you say lost touch with reality.
Yeah, like...
Expound a little bit on that.
Okay, like that's an example of that is like I would just walk somewhere and sit somewhere, and now I wouldn't want to go back home. Yeah, and maybe I was being called and I'm not picking the phone. And I'm now going back home, and time is running out. It's getting late.
So you had moments where you just go and disappear, and nobody knows where you are. And people call, you're not able to pick. You don't pick up the call. You don't return. How long? How long does this go on? Such scenarios like this?
Yeah.
Or how often? Or how frequent?
Okay, it didn't happen for long because. When I got that first episode, I was taken to hospital, thankfully, and now that's where they realized that what the problem was.
How did the family take
that's how I got the diagnosis.
How did they handle that news?
I think they handled it well. Yeah. I don't know how they felt inside them. Because I can't speak for them, but they handled it well. Because also you don't know like what it is. Maybe probably they didn't know what exactly it is, and how to deal with something like that.
Right. No, they were. Looks like they were supportive.
I don't know.
That's the word to use. They were supportive. Although it's it's something foreign.
Yeah.
For most people, most families too. When someone is diagnosed, they see an episode. They really don't understand what it is. The least they can do for someone who's going through that is be supportive, and I think that's they did that. They were supportive. They took you into the hospital, and they they supported you through that first, because that's the first episode, and that this right.
Yeah, that
interesting.
was
Interesting. So you go into the hospital. How long are you in the hospital now? How long did you spend there? And how was that being in it? What is going on through your mind when you're there?
Okay, that first time I was taken to hospital, I think they made me unconscious because I can't remember. I just woke up and found I'm in a hospital room and there are nurses there. Therefore, I don't know how long it was, but I know I stayed for a couple of days, maybe a week or two.
Okay.
Then after that, I was discharged.
Then you go home. They probably gave you medications. How's that first?
Yeah.
The first days when you get home. How was that?
The first days, they were okay. I was now trying to learn, like, what is this thing that I've been told I have? And it was also like a shock to me because I didn't ever think I would have a mental illness, let alone schizophrenia.
What do you hear? Schizophrenia. I'm going to struggle with that one throughout the entire this podcast. What do you think that is at that point? Like, do you even know it? Have you heard it before? Do you know anyone who has been diagnosed? And so I'm sure you start doing research. What do you think it is? Explain the emotions of you being told that you have that and how you process through that.
Okay, first I had never heard that word. It was like the first time I was hearing that word, and I didn't know anyone who ever had that illness. What I did was to go and just search, Google, research, and find out what it is. And once I found out, it was like a shock. And my first reaction was not to tell anyone or to tell myself that I won't tell anyone about this. Like, it will just be with me. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I just kept it to myself for a long time.
What shocked you? What is it about schizophrenia? Like, workers, what is that? Because there's somebody who's listening to these and they see the word, they hear the word. What is it that when you read through, what are some of the things that came through that, like, okay, that got you to that place where you just wanted to hold on?
Okay, when I did the research, I realized that schizophrenia, it's a disorder which affects someone's ability to think, to feel, and to behave. Meaning that when you have schizophrenia, you have certain symptoms, like you lose touch with reality, you have delusions, hallucinations, you lack motivation, things like that. Those are the things that I saw when I began to research. And the fact that it's also, it's like when you do the research, it's said that it's a severe mental illness. That really scared me because among mental illnesses, I think it's the one that people fear the most, or people feel it's the worst, because it's also a psychotic disorder, meaning sometimes you have psychosis. Like losing touch with reality. Yeah. So getting all that at once, I wasn't able to process, like, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel or something good will come out of it. I was just like, well, I'm done. Like, this
and I
is,
think you,
this is
just by
the
painting
end.
that picture, I can see, or I can tell that you're by yourself. You're processing this by yourself. The thought of maybe going to counseling or something hasn't come to in mind yet. So you're in this journey. You're finding it. You're finding out what schizophrenia is. It's a thought disorder. The symptoms that are coming, you're probably experiencing this, and you're all by yourself. And that has to be very tough. So how is your quality of life then? Once you get out of the hospital, do you get a job, or how's that? What's the quality of life then?
Okay. That time I was still in second year. I was now going to third year. Therefore, when I came back home, I had a few weeks to recover, and it was still the long holiday. Then I went back to school. Yeah. And I just resumed school like nothing happened. Not many people in school knew, because that was my secret by then. I just wasn't telling anyone. Wow. Yeah.
So you go back to school. You have the medications. I want to believe you have the diagnosis. How is school now?
Yeah.
How now, naturally, as introverted as you are, and then we sanguines on the other end, now you have this thing that you're dealing with. How does that affect even now your relationship, engaging, interacting with people, leave alone the sickness itself, not the diagnosis itself, but the Edna who people knew? How does that affect you?
Yeah. Okay. First, maybe I talk about the medications, because I was given medication immediately I was discharged, and those medications, they were not that good. Okay. Okay, they have side effects. Not that they're not good. They're good. They do help. Though I struggled initially because of the side effects. And it was also an issue because I wouldn't accept also to take them consistently because of the side effects. And one of the side effects that I struggled with was like weight gain. And now, because of taking them, I gained weight. Then I went back to school, and people are asking what happened. And then you can't tell them that I got diagnosed with a mental illness. I started taking antipsychotics, and antipsychotics brought about this change. Because you can't explain that, you just keep quiet and you just withdraw from people, and you don't interact that much because you also don't want to share the story, because you're still processing and it's still overwhelming. Yeah, I think that those were some of the challenges I faced now when I went back to school. Yeah, but again, I just told myself that I have to get good grades and finish. So I just didn't focus so much on these other things. At least for that time, I just focused on school, and I was able to finish.
Too. And I'm picturing it, just you being on this journey alone, and you're in campus, and the pressures of campus and the friends and the peers and all that. And now there's a physical effect. Mental illness is internal. I mean, someone can't tell. But now there's this physical effect that is visible, and then it is attempting to unmask kind of what you're going through. And I can believe that must have been tough to just shoulder that, to hide it, not try to explain it. So that must have been very tough.
So Edna, will I be wrong if I say that it seems as though from high school going to college, whenever you are faced with an issue or a challenge or a journey, you're on the path of your journey, grades, focusing in school was the way out. Like, you put your mind, your energy, your effort towards that one thing.
Yeah, I think these people who, like, when I put my mind to a certain goal, I just try to achieve it in spite of anything else. Like, if I say I'm going to do this, I make sure I do it. Yeah, and that can be good and bad also at the same time. Yeah, because maybe I should have addressed these other issues, and not addressing them probably led to this other extreme of now me getting diagnosed with a mental illness. Yeah, but at that time I also didn't know, so I also can't blame myself.
Yeah, I think that because I heard that in high school, now in college you've been diagnosed, now you're back in school, but you tell yourself, listen, my grades, I just gotta put my effort, my energy. I'm gonna block out every other person, every other noise. I'm gonna focus with this. Two things I'm hearing. One is that you have an internal struggle. Now, on top of just the diagnosis, you're hiding it. So that's an extra load that now you're carrying. But then you also want to continue with your life, or the medication part of it also. Why did you fear letting it known at that point?
Okay. Stigma. I was afraid because of stigma. Yeah, because what I read about schizophrenia and discovering it's a mental illness and the myths that were going around that with regards to mental illness, all that was just so scary. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to tell people that I have a mental illness, because there's stigma, there's all these myths and misconceptions.
So stigma. Well, on that topic of stigma, will I be wrong if I say that you had not experienced it, but you just imagined experiencing it? Because at this point, nobody knows, nobody has told you anything, but you're just imagining what people will say, and that just hinders you from actually sharing or even getting other help that you should have gotten. So self-stigma.
And I think
it
comes from somewhere too. I mean, it's historically you've probably heard of it, or at this stage, at this time, I can tell you're young. So at this time, there's talk of mental health, mental illnesses where you are, and you know, the self-stigma. I even forgot what I was gonna say. See, that's the problem. I'm not writing things down. But yeah, I can relate with that. I can tell how that affects your fear of getting the support. Oh, I was gonna say that it speaks a lot to many people who are suffering in silence because of the stigma. And again, that's why it's important for us to normalize speaking about mental health and mental illness, because there's people who can come out of their shadows and seek help because of the stigma. If we talk about it, you know, make it normal, make it that it's not normal, but it's okay to not be okay.
Create a safe environment.
Then people will come out of their shells and actually seek help. So
Kenan, you say that. Let me turn to you for a second. Self-stigma. I find there's someone who's listening. There's someone who's going through. Nobody has done anything to them. Nobody has said anything to them. But there's already self-stigma. How do we as human beings address self-stigma? Because some of it might not even be what other people will say or what has been said.
Right.
It's just what I think. And because I think, it becomes a reality. And when it becomes a reality, I start living in that reality, virtual space of reality that I've created in myself.
Exactly.
How do we address that self-stigma first?
I think, first of all, if you just go back to Edna's story, she went and researched.
Okay.
And she read. And the internet can be brutal. Again, when you read, you say psychosis, this and that. It speaks to what you internalize that. And again, it's the self-stigma is not what people say about you, but what you say about yourself. So again, those affirmations, affirming that, okay, it's an illness, yes, but if there's people who are living with it, they have survived with it and they've been okay. You know, affirming yourself and telling yourself that I can do it. It's bad, but yes, I can. So for me, the one thing I'll do for self-stigma is, and for anything else, is self-affirming yourself that I'm okay not to be okay. Telling yourself the positive things about it. And then, you know, sooner and sooner you kind of degenerate it and it comes, you know, then you start seeking that help. So self-affirming myself kind of would help. It's not easy as well.
It's not easy. I think part of it also has to do with, I know myself. Let me speak to myself here. Let me speak, Ezra. I'm talking to you, Ezra, now. This is a meeting I've called myself, I and myself, right? But let me say this. I think that growing up, there are things that you're not allowed generally just to say. You know, you grow up where you don't share your failures. Your failures are supposed to be concealed and hidden. Because of that, you don't develop coping skills that is healthy. So when you get into this point where it's real, it just becomes a hard thing. So I think there's need for us as a people, as a community, as individuals, to know that the distresses that we are harboring right now can materialize and grow into something bigger if we don't create, an avenue to address those right now. But let's come back to you, Edna, as we have a couple of minutes as we wind up the first session. Listeners, we're just setting the foundation. The story is long, but we're gonna condense it to make sense.
So I think we'll just let's do final thoughts, because and then we'll pick it up after campus now.
After campus,
and
how she deals with in campus.
Yes.
As we do those final thoughts, Edna. So now you go through campus. Do you have any episodes in campus? And then we'll do the final thoughts. Do you have any episodes in campus? You're a sophomore, which is a second year. You've gone back for third year. Do you quietly and nicely graduate from college? How does that go?
Yeah, the only episode the only episodes I had during campus were during the holidays. The one after second year, then I got diagnosed. Then after third year, I think I also got one episode, but it was during the holidays. Then I recovered.
Do those
went
episodes
back for
end up
year,
you being
then
hospitalized, or how do you manage them?
Yeah, most of the time, the episodes I would have to be
and when you admitted you are drugged, you don't know what's happening, you don't have these conversations. Were you only taking drugs? Did you do therapy? Did you, what was that treatment like besides drugs? Did you ever do therapy, counseling? Okay.
Initially, I didn't do that type of campus or after campus. I didn't do therapy. Yeah.
So listeners,
I was processing that.
You were processing that too. The journey through the journey of Edna, young girl, amazing gift, talent of design. I've seen her work. That's why I can say that. Focused, but also has this journey that she is walking through her early stages of life. That is your journey. That is my journey. That is our journey. We all have our own version of journey that we're walking. How do we walk through that journey? As we continue with this conversation, we're going to have closing shots as we finish this part one. Be sure that we're going to have some good stuff coming in for part two. So I'm going to just start with you, Edna. Any parting shots as we close this part? As we close this part, and then Kenan, and then we'll close this session and then come back for part two, where we'll start talking about how the journey continues, the coping skills, and Edna is where she is right now.
Okay, maybe I would just say to people out there, like, if you have a struggle, try to tell even one person and try to get help before it gets worse or before it gets too late or something like that. Yeah, it's good to talk. It's good to open up. It's good to be vulnerable. Yeah, though it's hard for some people. But I would just encourage anyone who's listening to this, if you're struggling with something, if something is not right somewhere, just reach out to anyone that you can reach out to.
I'll echo that. There's help out there. There's help out there if you're suffering, if you're experiencing something and you don't know what it is. You probably haven't been diagnosed. It's just an episode. You're not just an episode, but it's something that you can't explain what it is. So reach out there and talk to someone. We at the Amazing Truth Ministries are here to help. To our contacts are out there. If you're experiencing something and you need help, you don't know what it is. We are not experts, but we can obviously point you to someone who's an expert that can help. And again, for this part, I want to thank you, Edna, for sharing and being vulnerable. It's actually walking. Is it talking the talk? Walking the talk? Walking. Yeah,
that one.
Doing what you say you're going to do, and letting yourself out there. I know how difficult this has been. We were planning it together, so I know how difficult it is, and you kind of sharing this with us means a lot to yourself, and ending the self stigma again. This goes a long way to affirm yourself, and this will go a long way to affirm anybody else who's listening. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Edna. For me, as we close, as we finish this part, I just want to say that I think one of the greatest lessons for me is in these talks and conversations that we have is a self-realization of how much help I need myself. There are things that you deal with as a person and you don't have anyone to talk to, or you toughen up. Some of us are out there in the community, in leadership and stuff, and you put a smile through all that, but you are hurting in there. You're going through stuff by yourself. You don't know. I've recently learned that I don't know how to cope with certain situations in my life, and I still don't know how to. So just being able to hear the importance of making that a priority, I think we're many of us, and we thank you for coming out and sharing. So if you are in that journey, we are in that journey together. We're not experts, but part of this is even for us to actually be able to be enriched so that we can become better people in society. So we thank you for being part of this journey, being part of the family. We thank you, listeners. We thank you, viewers, for joining. This is the end of part 1, but we're coming to part 2 because we're just scratching the surface. There is so much we could have gone to. There's so much we can talk, but you don't want to miss the second part as we come back and continue building on this conversation. That is our Amazing Truth